Z Rádia FM ste počúvali ukážky z dvoch albumov, ktoré vyšli uplynulý piatok a spoločné majú aj to, že sú to debuty. Za nami je Julio Bashmore a ukážka z albumu Knockin' Boots a toto bola George a dcéra Neila Barnesa z Left Field, ktorá teraz vydáva na značke Domino, kde vyšiel aj jej rovnomenný album.
Album na dnešný deň.
A jeden čerstvý album máme pre vás aj dnes, aj keď nejde o jeden z tých, ktoré treba nutne počuť. Dvojicu Telepaty sme vám pred pár rokmi radi hrávali aj v programe Nová hudba, ktorej veríme. S dvojicou to vyzeralo veľmi sľubne, lebo si ich pod palec zobral známy Dave Sitek, Stevie on the Radio. Potom sa ale Telepaty na dlhých 5 rokov odmočali a hoci druhý album sľubovali 3 roky, tak dočkali sme sa ho až teraz. Počas jeho nahrávania Telepaty čítali veľa science fiction, a to sa odrazilo aj na samotnom albume. Z neho vám z Rádia FM hráme Night Spells a potom aj Drown Me Around.
Takže vítame vás ešte raz. Pomaly sa prosím usaďte, utíšte sa, urobte si pohodlie. Keď ešte niekto má chuť si zobrať nejaké občerstvenie, teraz je práve ten čas. Bo už pomaly začíname za chvíľku prednášku s Nikom Grafom, ktorý, ako ste si iste prečítali, je to full stack developer ako niektorý z vás, má kopec skúseností so startupmi a chcel by vám určite niečo pekné porozprávať o Reacte. So let's try again. Welcome everyone. I hope you're comfortable, and I'd like to present you Nik Graf, full stack developer like some of you, maybe most of you. I don't really know. Who are you? Developers or some marketing people? Who are you? Which of you are developers, please? Oh, well, yeah, everyone. Good. So I hope you will have a present entertainment with this presentation, and I hope you don't burn out. So please have a good time. I will now give the word to Nik. Please, Nik.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna tell you a little bit about React in combination with ES6+. With ES6+, I mean ECMAScript 6 and further features from the future. But first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Nik Graf. That's my Twitter handle. And during what I do is I work with Starter Squad. That's my day job. I work in a Starter Squad as a freelancer community, and what we do there is we form teams to help out funded startups and science projects. I'm also the creator of Belle, and Belle is a UI library, a React UI library. I released it about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and in the React community it got quite some attention. It has now on GitHub 850 stars in 3 weeks. And obviously it's written in ES6, ES6+. So I highly recommend you to check it out. I would say let's get started. First thing, I want to tell you a little bit about ECMAScript and the history behind it. As you probably know, ECMAScript is a scripting language standardized by ECMA International. The most well-known implementation probably is JavaScript, but also ActionScript is based on the ECMAScript standard. And ECMAScript, the first version was designed and published in 1997. The second version was just a small iteration of the text to comply with the ISO standard in 1998. And then we got the version 3 in 1999. So it's quite some time ago. But you can see that there was quite some, the iteration was quite fast. Within 2 years we were going from version 1 to version 3. And then version 4, there was a proposal for ECMAScript version 4, but that was abandoned, mostly due to political differences on the complexity of the language. And what you can see then, there was a time gap of 10 years where nothing happened. The JavaScript or ECMAScript or JavaScript didn't evolve, there was no proposal to improve the language that passed through the ECMAScript, ECMA International. That's quite sad for a programming language, because if you think about programming languages nowadays evolve really quickly, but ECMAScript was standing still for 10 years. Finally, 2009, ECMAScript 5 got published, and that's about 6 years ago. And as you probably know, it took us quite some time for that all the browsers get deprecated, and we can rely on newer browsers which actually got ECMAScript 5 implemented. So if you look at this table, you can see that that's just an ES5 shim, but if you look here, you can see I have to do it here, sorry. If you can see here, these are all the different browser engines. And apart from a few features that you probably won't use anyway, almost everything is green now. So if you're pretty good with having your customers use IE9 and up, you're pretty comfortable. You're pretty good with using ECMAScript 5. So you can do map on the arrays, and you don't need to bother if that will fail in the browser. If you support IE8, then you still have a problem. You should use underscore and can't use these functions. But I think a lot of even like big players already deprecated IE8, and that's for good. Yeah, so that was ECMAScript 5, and nowadays we talk about ECMAScript 6. And first of all, why bother? Why bother about the next iteration of JavaScript? Is because it has a ton of really cool features that will help you a lot with your developer experience. So there's a lot of things like classes, enhanced object literals, block scope binding constructs, property initializers, and many, many more. And yeah, that's why ECMAScript 6 is really cool. And the good part is that ECMAScript 6 got finalized. There was a final draft in April 2015, and it got approved, I think, only a few weeks ago. So there's like ECMAScript 6 is finalized and it won't change anymore. Now you might think, okay, ECMAScript 6 or ECMAScript 5. It took us 5 years that we get to this green table where every browser vendor is using it. And I did the same in the beginning. So I thought like, okay, ping me again in 6 years and then we can talk about if I can use these features. But something interesting is happening. For example, if you look at, this is a tweet from Chad Watson at the React Europe conference. There's like almost all of the slides were using ECMAScript 6 code. So people use ECMAScript 6, or at least they show ECMAScript 6 in their slides already today. And you probably, if you see these slides with code on there, you probably won't even recognize it as JavaScript. There's some pretty neat changes in there. So, yeah, and as I mentioned, the support is pretty bad. So, as you can see from here to the right, these are all browser vendors. And if you look at this, for example, there's a ton of interesting features, and even in IE11, everything is red. You can't use it. Pretty sad story, but there's a thing going on, and the really, really nice part about it is that we nowadays have compilers that allow you to compile ECMAScript 6 down to ECMAScript 5, or even ECMAScript 3 in some cases. So the really nice part about it, if you're pretty comfortable with using ECMAScript 5, what you can do is you can write your code in ECMAScript 6 and you can compile it down to ECMAScript 5. So you can use the benefits of classes, of all these nice features that I've just shown you, that you get with ECMAScript 6 and even above. And you can still serve code that is pretty fine in IE9, IE10, IE11 and so on. And yeah, there are a couple of compilers, but the ones that are more interesting, or that I personally found more interesting, for one is Tracer. Tracer was made by Google, and they now is supported by the community. So this is a community project. There's JS Transform, which was built by Facebook, and is now already deprecated and got replaced by Babel. And Babel is the one. So Babel is the compiler that I personally recommend you to use. Babel was created. It's a fairly young project. It started last fall by Sebastian McKenzie, and I find it really, I'm amazed by this guy because he started this as a side project. He just wanted to learn more about compilers and about the future versions of JavaScript. So he started to hack around as a side project. And nowadays, and he put in ECMAScript 6 support. He even supports some of the features that are in draft mode for ECMAScript 7, so that this will be the next version where people are working on already. And he got JSX support, which is really important for building React components. And as of today, this is already highly or widely adopted. So you can see companies like Netflix, Mozilla, Airbnb, PayPal, and you name it, are using Babel. And even as of yesterday, when I was doing my final research, I found this tweet. As of yesterday, Facebook.com is compiled with Babel.js. Why is that important? I'm pretty defensive, or it's like I'm pretty defensive adopting new technologies. I'm always like concerned, will this technology be around? Is the community big enough? Will there be enough support? And with Babel.js, I think you're pretty good as of today, because there are many people who are interested that Babel keeps on existing and evolves. And yeah, so Babel is the way to go, to at least the way I think I would recommend you to go to use future ECMAScript 6 versions, ECMAScript 6 to compile it down to ECMAScript 5. And yeah, so that was kind of the introduction. So I would say let's get started, because and let's start with something not too complex, but definitely one of my most favorite features in ECMAScript 6 is that you get blocked scope binding constructs. So by the way, I will tell you, keep in mind I will show you some ECMAScript 6 features. Not all of them are, so you could use them with or without React, but the further we get down to the road, you will see how they benefit when building React components. And then of course I'll not tell you all of the features, but especially the ones that help you with building React components. So back to blocked scope binding constructs. There are two new constructs. The first one is const, and the second one is let. Both, as the name already says, are block scoped. My more favorite one is const. Const has the same scoping as let, but there's one really neat thing. It's a single assignment. So if you assign, if you instead of using var hello equals hello, you simply can use const now. And whenever you try to reassign anything to this variable, Babel, or in my case, the editor is faster because I have syntax linting in my editor. Babel will not compile and tell you this is not valid. And that makes it really, really nice when working in the same code base with a lot of people, because you can make sure that by using const as a variable construct, you can make sure that people don't overwrite your stuff, or at least if you don't use const, people will instantly see, or you will instantly see, that someone further down the road in the code has a reason to overwrite this. And this changes the game in terms of, you know, that reassigning won't happen if you use const. There's one point I should add. What you can, it's only for reassigning. It is not automatically immutability. So if you have, for example, an object here, and there's a property in that object, you cannot reassign a new object to this, but you can still change properties in that object.
May I have one question?
Sure, go ahead.
You know, I was little afraid with this const.
Yeah.
Because it implies you can only assign a scalar value. But can you assign like something like express application to it?
What do you mean by express application?
You have like require express and you create var app equals
Okay.
express.
Sure, use const there. Actually, for import statements, I don't even use require anymore. You can do import from, and I think it has the same effect as const.
I was a little afraid to assign complex object to the const.
Go for it. I mean, in the end, because you have ECMAScript 5, or you need ECMAScript 5, in the end, it will be in the code. It will be a var. The only benefit is that Babel, if you try to reassign it, Babel would notify you and tell you, hey, that's not valid code anymore. So in the end, it's still, if you serve it to customers, it's still a var, and nothing changes in that manner. But you can make sure that no one in the code further down is reassigning express, for example, and that's pretty useful because you don't want to have people mess with your import statement in that case. Except there's some, I can't think of a good reason. But yeah, let's get to the point. Why is this necessary, or why is this a really good thing? As you know, the variable assignment in JavaScript is not block scoped. So if you have a var and you assign 31 to x here, and then you open up a new block, for example, like if, a block inside an if, what will happen is that if you use var x here again and try to assign it, you actually, this is not inside block scoped, but this will actually change the variable outside as well. And that's really bad, because, I mean, that doesn't happen too often, probably, but if it happens, it costs some debugging time and is pretty annoying. So that is, I mean, at least to me, that is some behavior I don't want to have. And what you get with ECMAScript 6 is you get the let construct. So this is really block scope then. So if you do let x here and you assign 31, 31, and then you have another block inside there and you assign 71, it's a different variable. If you see, if it's var, it's the same variable. If it's let, it's block scoped, and it's a different one. If we would leave out this line, the let x71, it would still be available, because with let there's an inheritance to sub blocks, so you can still use it in there. But the downside is that but you can still reassign or assign new variables, different ones. Yeah. So as you can see, compared to this one, if I'm outside of the scope, I will still have the right value, the expected value at least. Const works the same way. Const has the same block scope binding, but with the difference that const, as I said, is a single assignment. And what happens, at least if you look at my code that I'm writing for the last couple months using ES6, is that I almost all the time only use const anymore, except for the reasons where I'm pretty sure that an if condition, for example, is changing the let, or is changing the variable. So if I have, for example, if I have a style and the style, some property in the style is changing, or if I have a style and based on some factor, I completely replace the style, have A or B style, then I use a let. But if you look into code, for example, if you look into Belle, it's a wild guess, but I would say 95% of the variable assignments are const there, because there's no need to override variables. Yeah, and it's a simple feature, but it brings you back some sanity when coding, especially with JavaScript, and it's pretty nice. Yeah, that was the first part, the first really cool feature. Let's move on to some stuff that really helps you a lot more with React. And that is the new classes support in ECMAScript 6. If you have written any React component, this is probably the ECMAScript 5 is probably then the way you know already. So you have this React create class function, which creates a kind of a class for React, and then you can have functions in there, and you have these different getters like get default state, get default props, get initial state and get default props, and you can assign these functions in there. With ECMAScript 6, we now got classes, and classes are still prototype based, but they allow you to use the object-oriented pattern. And we have many libraries out there. They try to do the same. So if you think about Backbone, the Backbone models, if you combine it with CoffeeScript, you can have classes there as well. And I think it's the same implementation as ClojureScript classes. But the beauty of this new class syntax and the new class functionality is that now everyone is aligned, because this is the future, and eventually, if you look at it in 10 years, everyone using the same class, the same class syntax, and obviously you get the same features. So the beauty of it is that it will be more easy to combine, extend, and let libraries work together, because it will have the same class feature. And also, if you look at the syntax here, if you look at the syntax here, you get it's pretty simple. You get class, then the name of your class, and then we use an extend. And what you can do is you actually could do this function assignment, but you don't need to. So you can simply have these are instance functions of the class. So if you make an instance of the photo component, then this is on the instance, and the React core team is really fond of this way doing components. So what they did is they created this component to support extending it, and this is really nice. So the React guys, the React core team, Facebook guys, Instagram, everyone is moving in this direction to build React components like this. So eventually, what we might see in the future is that this create class thingy will be deprecated. And of course, there are many more. The nice part is that with classes, you don't only get this simple, nice, beautiful syntax and simply extending things, but you also get a constructor, you get super calls, and it's just very convenient. And more features that I we'll show in the next slide. Yeah, let's go to it. By the way, property initializers. To give some context, if you had this all ECMAScript 5 structure, ECMAScript 5 way of creating a React component. So this is a video component. We create a class here. We tell what the default properties are. We make a getter for the default properties. We make a getter for the initial state, and we define the prop types. This is all things that are very special to React. So if you get a new developer, she or he has to read up on that, and they have to figure out what is get initial state. What does it mean in the context of React? And with ECMAScript 6, it gets, first of all, it becomes less code. And second of all, with property initializers, you can put properties directly onto that class, or and eventually then the instance. So what you can do is, by the way, this is already, that's not ECMAScript 6, but this property. So classes are ECMAScript 6, but property initializers are already ECMAScript 7. And yeah, but what you get is, you get, for example, static properties. So you can have these default props, or these prop types, which are always the same for the, or which should be on a class level, and then you get the state, so you can assign the state here, which should be on an instance level. And yeah, just to show you the direct comparison, if you have get initial state here, before you had a function. This function was called every time a React component gets initialized, because React works that way, and then you basically return the object how it looks like. In the future, or actually nowadays, you simply define a state as a property in the beginning. For default props, it's fairly similar. Default props is a function, and React knows when I have default, or when a React component is created in this ways, I should always call this get default props function to initialize the properties. In the future, we just tell, hey, this is the default props, and take that. Yeah, and these are the property initializers. So no need anymore for doing these special functions that people have to read up on. It becomes more concise and clean. Yeah. Next cool feature that will make your life easier are error functions. So if you look at this code example here, what we had to do in the past, always, if you have an array of numbers here and you want to map over it, you always had to declare this is an anonymous function, a closure, and I want to pass this function, this anonymous function, in there. It, as a parameter, it takes an item, and then I return, especially for mapping, I return the item +1. So that kind of clumsy. And as we learned from CoffeeScript and there's actually, I think even Java has it now. I don't know, C#. Yeah, so there's lesson learned from a lot of programming languages is these easy operations, or these expressions, or the passing in functions to do things, can be done in a nicer way and simpler and shorter. And what you get with ECMAScript 6 is you get the error functions, and with the error functions, basically everything before the error is a parameter, or is that parameter. If you have this expression body, so it's a parameter, then you have the error, and then you get the expression, and the expression in this case is always returned. So this is the same thing as this one. It's just implicit. As an alternative, if you want to use multiple parameters, and we know the mapping function gives first parameter an item and the second parameter an index, you can do that as well. Then you have to do put it to a parenthesis. Yeah, and then you have the error function again, and the expression behind the error is returned. But you don't even, if you do more complicated things, you can still use the arrow. You can even do block constructs. So this is really nice for one-liners, which are really, really simple. If you do more complex things, you can use the arrow and do a block statement. I think, I'm not 100% sure right now, but I think if you use the block statement, it is not automatically returned. You need to return it explicitly, only in this case. There's also an additional thing about arrow functions that I personally find super, super exciting, and that's it fixes the this inside the arrow function. So if you have the arrow, as you know, whenever you created a function before, every function gets its own this, or I don't even know, to be honest. It's a mess with this in JavaScript. But if you use an arrow function, the this is always coming from the not from the object is called from, but the object it was defined in. So if we, for example, have this this object Bob, the name is the name of Bob is obviously Bob. Then you get a list of friends, which in this case is rather short, but you know, I hope Bob gets more friends soon. But you could still ask Bob to print his friends, and this would need to iterate over the friends, and then for each friend we log out Bob knows this friend. And the beauty of it, that inside this arrow function, that this is the right one, is the one that you want to have, and you don't have to do const self equals this and then use it again. You simply use an arrow function and it solves all your problems. Yay! Woo! Yeah. So these are arrow functions, and that is a feature that is not very much related to React, but I find it so cool. I wanted definitely to put it in. And the next one as well, because this also really annoyed me all the time about JavaScript, and that's string handling. So multi-line strings pain, because you always have to do new line characters, so the /n, /n. And if you use the backtick, so be aware that this is not a normal tick, this is the normal tick, the one. In ECMAScript 6, you can use the backtick, and this allows you to do multi-line strings. So you can start a string, and you can simply press enter, and then you have a space here, for example, and you can go on and go on, and eventually this string will have these new line characters in, because you started it with a backtick. So if it's in the code there's the new line character, then it will take it as a new line. Yay! So that's the first thing that is now nice in ECMAScript 6. The second thing is interpolation. So if you had two variable assignments with ECMAScript 5, and you wanted to print it out in one string, you had to do this really annoying edit plus, or you even make an array and then you join it. There are many many interesting tricks how to solve that problem. And then you always forget to have the space here because you don't do the space and simply plus, and then you render it, you figure out, oh damn it, I forgot it. All these problems are solved with ECMAScript 6 again. Because what you can do is interpolation, so you can simply use, if you have this, in this case we have to use the backtick again. If you use the backtick, you can do with a dollar and the curly braces open and close, and put the variable in there. So in this case we have the city defined here. When we put it in here, we simply get to the same result, that the variable will be inside the string. Yay. Pretty cool.
There was one thing.
Yeah?
I think Douglas Crockford mentioned
Yeah.
that in that multi-line tick string there was something wrong because in his slide he used, here is the example of the code and here is the exact the same. The first one is okay,
Yeah.
the second is throwing fatal error or something like that. And can you spot the error in the second example?
Yeah.
And there was a white space before the enter.
Really?
I don't know if this is still happening, but he was pointing to this
Yeah.
misconception.
Let's try it out later. Curious, yeah. Do you know, was it a presentation or?
He presented.
Yeah.
I put his name on it.
Okay. Yeah, let's try that. I'm curious if that's the case. Cool. Thanks. And before, let's move on. Second last feature I will show you. And I think now it becomes really, really interesting because these two features I will show you will help you a lot with creating React components. And the first one, especially in combination, but I will show you one by one and then we combine them. The first one is the spread attribute or spread operator. And this is available in ECMAScript 7, so that's not completely done yet. But the React guys figured, okay, that makes really a lot of sense for using it in React. And they put it into JSX. So if you use JSX to compile your React components, then you can use the spread operator in there. So what does the spread operator do? Let me explain it with this example. If you, for example, if you have this photo set, in this case, photo set is a simple object. It has a cover index. So that defines like which of the photos should be the cover of the photo set, and then you have photos, which simply are objects with an URL. This would be the object that I get from the server, for example. What you can do is you can explicitly assign everything. So if I want to show that in a photo grid, I could tell, okay, the cover index is coming from my photo set, and that's the cover index. And the photos are coming from a photo set, and these are the photos. So I pass everything explicitly down to the subcomponent, in this case the photo grid. With the spread, with spread attributes, you can do exactly the same. So, and this is really, really useful if you have components and you want to pass down data, or all the properties. So if you have wrapper components and then you have another component inside, and then you have another component inside, and you simply want to pass it down to the last component, you can always use the spread attributes, because you just from the top. So in this case, if we're in a photo page component, and we want to pass down the photo set from the photo page that we got here to the photo grid, we just tell use the curly braces to ... and pass in the photo set, and this will do exactly the same as we see here. And that helps to pass down things, and it becomes powerful in combination with deconstructing. And deconstructing. Deconstructing is that is array deconstructing. Deconstructing helps you with to assign variables with pattern matching. So if you have an array with 1, 2, 3 in it, and you wanted to have an A and B, which is the first and the third one, the third entry, then you in ECMAScript 5 you simply by doing this. What you can do with list matching in this case is you can simply do it like this. That makes it clear that this is the pattern of the array. So if I have this array, I want to assign A, that is obvious, and A is mapping to the first entry. I don't care about the second entry, so I just leave it out. And I care about the third entry, which is my B. And then you will have A and B available the same way as you would have done it here. If you use another column and use ... you can assign the rest of the array to this one. And these are pretty powerful concepts we've seen, for example, coming from Scala. I work with some people who do a lot of Scala, and it's really nice to deconstruct arrays or lists in that case. Pretty nice concept. But that was just for demonstration, because for me personally, the more interesting part is deconstructing objects, and in the context of React, deconstructing properties I get from a parent component. So in this example, what you can see here is that we have the properties. So this.props is if we have one single photo component, you have the class name is photo, and it's a box. We know it's a square, so that's true, and we know the width is 200. What you can do is, with deconstructing an object, what you can say is that I only want to take out the class name, assign it to one variable, and then take the rest and put it onto another object. And you can even do, I want to take out the class name, I want to take out is square, and then put the rest in another object. Or you don't even care about the other object, and you simply leave it out. And yeah, this ... always is for take the rest. Yeah, so if you do this here on this props, what's really nice is that you get class name, which in this case would be the photo box. But the really important part is that you really take it out. So, the others that I define here is everything except the class name. And then you get an object like is square is true and width 200 in this case. And as I mentioned, it becomes really powerful when you combine spread and deconstructing, and there's the use case. So think about, we have a photo page here that extends from React component, obviously, because we create a React component here. I have my functions, and then I have my render method. And if you look at the HTML here, this photo page cares about having the right class name, so that's probably expected to pass down. And the rest, I simply want to pass down to the photo grid. And the really cool part about it, now I can deconstruct these properties that I get from a parent. So I take the class name out, and then put everything on the rest, which is other props in this case. And then I can simply use them. And in other props, the class name will not be. So its class name will not be in of these other props anymore. And then in the photo page, I could use my class name, probably for styling purposes, and the rest, probably the photo set, the cover index, all that kind of stuff, I simply pass down to the photo grid. And this really helps to when you it encourages you to build a lot more components, and not repeat yourself all the time. Because you can simply take a component, split it in two, and then pass from one thing to the another, and leverage that. Yeah. So that's my hot tip for you. And the absolute pro tip I would like to give you, what made my life a lot more easy, is using ESLint. Because if you want to use ECMAScript 6 or even features from ECMAScript 7, I highly recommend you ESLint to validate your code. And it's very, very flexible, so you can enable and disable rules to make sure that everyone and we actually use it in the we enable and disable rules in the repository. So you can tell for one repository, okay, let's try out this ECMAScript 6 or ECMAScript 7 feature. We turn it on. In another one, we leave it out. So you can have this ES lint RC in your repository, and then everyone is using the same setup. Yeah, so it's pretty flexible in that regard, and it follows the standard. It even has JSX support, and if you don't want to mess around, I mean, in the beginning, it's really nice to have a really good base setup. And there's a fantastic guide from Airbnb. It's a JavaScript guide, how they write the JavaScript, basically the good parts of the good parts. And it even comes with a pretty neat ESLint setup. So you can simply take from their repository the ESLint RC, put it into your repository, and you're pretty good. And in the ESLint repository, because Airbnb also uses React, they have a pretty neat they activated special JSX rules, and probably the nicest thing is that it enforces an order of the functions inside a React component. So it makes sure that the constructor is always on top. It makes sure that then the next one is prop types come, then you get the custom functions, and then at the bottom is always render. And that helps, because if you work with a lot of people, and ESLint is enforcing these rules, then you always know, cool, if I want to see the render function of a component, I switch to that file and go to the bottom, because there I will find the render function. And yeah, for collaboration, it's a really nice feature. Yeah, and I use ESLint in combination with Atom, so I code in Atom, and there I wanted to just demonstrate how it works. For example, in this code example, I took out a component from the import, and ESLint instantly underlined the faulty line with red dots, and shows me a hint of, in this case, there's something wrong. And the same goes if you try to override a const. If you make if you break any kind of rule that you activated with ESLint, it will show you, hey, you're wrong. And it's a very quick feedback cycle. So I stripped down a lot of this, like, okay, change code and then refresh, and then, damn it, there was a mistake, because it's linting already, and it's pretty good. Really nice feature. Yeah. That's the end. I want to give special thanks to Steven Luscher. He made a blog post, React on ES6, and that inspired this talk. And it's very much based on this blog post. I highly recommend you to check it out. It's a blog post. It's a guest post on Babel.js.io. Really good one. And he explains the things really nice. I added some of the features that I find useful. Yeah. Really good guy and nice blog post. And yeah, I highly recommend you to check out Belle. That's the public repository, the React UI library that I wrote together with some friends, and it uses ES6, so you can check out the code and learn from it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
We have one there. Are you aware of sli.do?
Okay. No, not really. What is it?
Well, actually, it's some sort of JavaScript framework.
I heard of it. Yeah, yeah. I haven't looked much into it, but yeah.
It's really popular in Czech Republic.
Okay.
Its author is like eccentric a little bit.
Okay.
So it's proposing it everywhere.
Great. Any other questions?
I have one.
Sure.
You showed the class syntax of
Yeah.
React components, but what about the mixins? Can we use them? Or?
Okay, that's a downside. No, you can't mix ins with the new class syntax. So there's two downsides when you use the new class syntax. You lose the auto binding that React comes with, but there's an ES7 feature which is doing : and then you get auto binding back, or you get the binding. And the second downside is that you can't use mix-ins anymore. Yes, that's quite annoying.
Is there some workaround?
Yes, there's in ES7. That's kind of early, but there's decorators. So what you can do is you can. I haven't tried it myself, but I've seen that there's one guy who did a decorator with this decorator you can use a mixin. So you can apply a decorator to a React class, and it will do the same as the mixins. They will just mix in the functions. And when I tell about these are ES7 features which are not in the standard yet, that's even completely fine. I mean, you might have to change some code if it changes in the future. But the beauty of it is that you're on some kind of Babel version, and that knows the specific rule set for this version. And when Babel, or when the standard changes, Babel is changing. So if you upgrade Babel, you then have to follow the standard. But that's a decision you can make. So I'm pretty confident. I mean, I don't use too many ES7 features, but for example, the static keyword here is something that is not in ES6, but it's in ES7. But I'm pretty confident. First of all, I'm pretty confident that it will stay. I'm using it. And second of all, if that changes to something similar, that takes me half an hour to go over a complete repository and then change it. Yeah. So I do npm, I use npm to update Babel, then figure out, okay, it breaks something somewhere, and let's go over the code base, fix it with find replace, and you're done. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh.
I would like to ask, do you use Flux in application? And if yes, what library for Flux you recommend?
Okay. Yes, I use Flux in 2 projects. For me it was a problem to decide which Flux implementation should I take, which one will take the lead, which will still exist in 1 year. And so basically my decision was I will go with the bare bones Flux thingy that Facebook proposed. Facebook put out the examples with the chat and to do. So the downside of that is that you write a little bit more code than you could be, because there are some Flux implementations which help you a lot. to reduce the code. But in the end, I felt more secure doing that because, yeah, I don't want to be dependent on any Flux library that might not be there in half a year, and or not good supported anymore. And so yeah, that's what Flux. So we use simple functions all the time. What I'm really excited about is Redux. Dan Abernow's stuff is really amazing. We started to use it for an admin interface in one application that we're building out new. So it's like, yeah, we had the opportunity there. Okay, that's new part of the whole thing, and we try it out there. And yes, it works fantastic. So I personally hope that all the Flux implementations are moving towards this. Towards Redux, and yeah, it's an insane cool way of doing development. It's like, and to explain a little bit, Redux is Redux. I think the quote on the website, one guy made a really good said a really good argument or a sentence. It's like, Dan Abernov, who's working on Redux, is like, he made Flux better by not doing Flux at all, because Flux has concepts of stores and dispatcher, and he's leaving that out completely, and it all comes back to reducers, and yeah, you get this. The way it works, you get the timeline, so you can actually replay actions, you can move back and forward, you can leave out one action in between. It's a really nice way of quickly iterating in your front end or your UI and front end development. And yeah. Who of you is writing React components? I'm curious. Can you raise your hand? All right, cool, good stuff. And who is using some kind of Flux implementation? Okay, nice. Cool, that's good. Yeah, it's still fairly new in some kind of way, but glad you all are here. If you have, one more question. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, we had a little discussion before your presentation that my friend told if we ever get rid of Babel, if the features come into the browsers. But I read somebody in a blog post that if ECMAScript 7 will be in all the browsers, we already will be using ECMAScript 9, so
yeah.
transpilers will never disappear. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I guess so too, because it's like, yeah, it's a moving thing, and I mean, yeah, eventually in 20 years you can use ECMAScript 20 with yeah, exactly, natively, but yeah, I mean, for now, for the next couple of years, I can envision the transpilers or compilers will say, and you exactly as you said, there's like it will not go away. You will use ECMAScript 7 features, and then you will use ECMAScript 8 features and all that. And think about it, it's a pretty it takes a while. I mean, now if you look at IE 11. It barely supports anything that is in ECMAScript 6, and which is like the standard now. And I don't know, it will take some people a while to deprecate I11, I guess. And yeah, so it's like, yeah, the ECMAScript 5 that we get to this all green, or almost all green, that was 6 years, and that's quite some time.
just to announce, the pizza is gonna arrive in meantime soon. So if you don't have any other questions, please start with the networking, and I'll get the pizza.
Cool. Any more questions? And then, thank you very much. Cool.
Yes. So thank you, Nik, for your presentation. I hope you'll come again soon for another one.
Definitely.
Because I really enjoyed it.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was good. Maybe if you want some feedback, I think beginning was too long.